Rome declares war. Rome is a city that has seen better days. While it was built on 7 hills, it's now slowly crumbling into a depression. The mighty Roman Senate is coming to blows over a woman. Octavian, Mark Antony's adopted son and future emperor, launched a vicious propaganda war against his father's lover, Cleopatra. And the Senate couldn't help but side with the young upstart. Did they declare war on the wrong person? Will Antony and Cleopatra win the ensuing battle, or will Rome prove victorious? Let's find out. It's me. This is the last time I wore socks with sandals. Welcome to the channel. It's time to look at the events leading up to the Battle of Actium between Octavian and Antony's navies. While Antony and Cleopatra are lovers, this war isn't about them. No, this is a battle between empires, specifically Rome vs. Egypt. More accurately, it's a battle for the entirety of the Mediterranean between 2 potential superpowers. Rome wants control of the whole region, while Egypt wants to rule as well. Naturally, there can only be one winner. The war actually started years before the Battle of Actium in 44 BC, when Julius Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators who were concerned he was becoming too powerful. Caesar had conquered Gaul, defeated Pompey, and was making plans to conquer Parthia. He was also having an affair with Cleopatra, which resulted in the birth of Caesarion. After Caesar's assassination, a power struggle ensued between the assassins and their allies and 4 of Caesar's allies: Mark Antony, Octavian, Lepidus, and Agrippa. They divided the Roman world between themselves and formed the Second Triumvirate. However, Lepidus soon retired from public life after losing a power struggle with the other 3. That left just 2 powerful factions vying for ultimate control of Rome. Mark Antony led the eastern half of the empire, and Octavian ruled the west. Each had their own navies to enforce their dominance in their regions, and those navies would clash at Actium. But why? Well, that's because Rome declared war on the wrong person. Let us back up to 43 BC, when Antony was in the eastern Mediterranean dealing with threats to Rome's eastern provinces. Parthia and the kingdom of Pontus had rebelled against Rome, but Antony defeated both and returned to Alexandria to see his beloved Cleopatra. She had given him a number of gifts during the war, including the cities of Sidon and Ptolemy. But Antony was generous as well. In 41 BC, he gave Cleopatra a portion of the Roman province of Syria. This action outraged the Roman Senate. They demanded that Antony return to Rome to explain his actions. And since he was married to Octavia, Octavian's sister, the Senate sided with Octavian in the dispute. In hindsight, Antony should have listened to his advisors and returned to Rome. Instead, he chose to stay in Alexandria and marry Cleopatra. He divorced Octavia and gave her half of his eastern provinces, including the critical province of Syria. Cleopatra and Antony then had twins, a boy and a girl, and established a new dynasty in Alexandria. Their union enraged Rome even more, not because of the marriage itself, but because of how the divorce of Octavia and the division of Syria went down. According to Plutarch, Antony didn't even tell Octavia he was getting divorced. Instead, he sent her packing with the new provinces in what is known as the Alexandrian Don. To make matters worse, he distributed more of his eastern provinces to Cleopatra, giving her the entirety of Syria. Even worse, he let her keep all the treasure of the Temple of Bellona in the city of Athens. This was a major insult to Rome, as the goddess Bellona was the personification of war and violence. By allowing Cleopatra to steal from her temple, Antony was deemed a traitor to the Roman people. The Senate now had justification to go to war. To get ahead of this conflict, Antony and Cleopatra could have gone to war with Rome, but they probably wouldn't have won. Antony's fleet may have been larger, but Rome was a naval powerhouse at the time. Rome also had the manpower advantage, with around 80 to 100,000 foot soldiers versus Antony's 40 to 50,000. So going to war wasn't really an option. The couple's best chance of surviving was to secure an alliance with the most powerful kingdom in the Mediterranean, that being Rome. In fact, Antony may have thought that his alliance with Cleopatra was enough to secure him the throne of Rome. But Octavian wasn't having it. He declared war on Egypt and began mustering his forces. The civil war was on. As mentioned, Rome was suffering from the effects of the Great Depression, so recruiting soldiers was tough. But the war with Egypt proved popular with the Roman people, especially as Octavian used it to attack Cleopatra directly. He focused his propaganda efforts on depicting the Egyptian queen as some sort of evil sorceress who had cast a spell on his father. His pamphlets read, "Beware the Egyptian, beware the serpent brood, beware the treacherous nets spread by the Egyptian." These propaganda campaigns worked. Soldiers flooded into Octavian's camp, eager to defeat Cleopatra and rescue Antony from her grasp. Meanwhile, Cleopatra and Antony used their shared love for each other as motivation to fight. They were head over heels in love, something that hadn't happened much in the annals of Roman history. The love story of Antony and Cleopatra is legendary, though historians do debate just how accurate it is. But their love for each other is what made this war possible. Without it, they would never have defied Rome in the first place. With it, they defied all odds. Cleopatra tried to dissuade Antony from going to war with Rome. She knew they couldn't win, but Antony was blinded by love and rage. While she was ready to lose everything for him, she refused to allow him to destroy everything he had worked for, namely his career. Still, she knew they would need a large navy to win such a war, and Egypt simply didn't have the resources to compete with Rome. Luckily for them, they didn't need to build ships. Instead, they could use the existing fleets of Antony's former allies. Unfortunately, many of them were now his enemies. Not all of them, however. The king of Bithynia, a small Anatolian kingdom, wanted to capitalize on the war between Rome and Egypt. He offered to pay for the construction of a fleet for them, an offer they gladly accepted. The fleet would be commanded by a man named Ganymede, a freed slave of Antony. The timing of the fleet's construction is debated among historians, but it seems likely that the ships were ready in 33 or 32 BC at full strength. It contained about 600 ships. That fleet would sail to Actium, where it would join another fleet of about 200 ships under the command of Rome's greatest admiral, Marcus Agrippa. Why was Agrippa commanding the Egyptian fleet? Well, he didn't. Agrippa was a general in Octavian's army. He was given command of the combined fleets by his master. Agrippa had extensive experience in naval warfare, having previously defeated Sextus Pompey, who had waged war against Rome from the sea. Now he was doing the same thing to Antony. But what was supposed to be an easy victory quickly turned into a nightmare for Rome. Cleopatra and Antony met Agrippa's fleet off the coast of the Greek city of Actium in September of 32 BC. The battle was fierce, but neither side could gain the upper hand. It was clear that whoever could bring additional ships to bear on the enemy would win. So both sides withdrew to regroup. A few days later, Octavian arrived with his infantry. He planned to land them in Epirus and march on Actium, forcing Antony to face him on land as well as sea. But Cleopatra was prepared for this as well. She and Antony defeated Octavian, sending him retreating back to Greece. Octavian was forced to regroup again. He needed to find a way to defeat Cleopatra once and for all. He got his opportunity on September 2nd, when Cleopatra and Antony were distracted by his attack on their camp. Agrippa took advantage and engaged the enemy ships. For 11 hours, the two fleets battled, and despite being outnumbered, Rome prevailed. Much of the fighting was close range, with ships ramming each other, soldiers swinging swords, and boarding hooks pulling men off the deck into the water. By the end of the day, Egypt had lost 170 ships and Rome only 20. The rest of the Egyptian fleet escaped to Antony, where they surrendered without a fight. That left just 2 ships carrying Cleopatra and Antony, along with Caesarion, trying to escape to Egypt. They were pursued by Agrippa, who wished to capture the lovers alive so Octavian could parade them through Rome. But contrary to popular belief, Cleopatra and Antony weren't defeated at Actium. They simply withdrew to Egypt. Who do you think would have won if they had fought on land, though? Vote in the poll and comment your reasoning down below. Then click here to watch one of these next videos. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.